What is up, Jaguar students? It's your friendly neighborhood math teacher, Mr. Allred, and I'm here today to speak with you about Unit 9, mini lesson number 2. We're going to talk about angles and triangles today. Your learning goal is that by the end of the day, you should be able to explain how to define and classify triangles, and you can find missing angle measures in triangles by the end of the day as well. Okay? Disclaimer about this. This is a topic that took me 2 or 3 days to cover with 2nd, 5th, and 6th period. You're going to get the short version of it today. I've spoken with you about this before, but we're going to do the rest of this year pretty quickly. And if you ever have any questions about anything, about why things are the way they are, about different things and the way they work, you can always feel free to approach me after class or during class about those, and I can further explain them to you if you need help understanding it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the notes. We're going to talk about triangles today, the angles inside of them and their sides. Okay, there's 2 different ways to classify triangles. You can classify triangles by their sides or angles. Okay, and we're going to work first, these first 3 things. We're going to classify triangles by their angles. And then we're going to classify triangles by their sides. So there's 2 different categories for triangles, 2 different ways to classify them. Okay. The first ways you can classify them are by their angles. You have right triangles. Right triangles are triangles with one 90-degree angle. Usually you'll see one that looks kind of just like this guy does, has a right angle there in the left corner. A right triangle is a triangle with one 90-degree angle. An obtuse triangle is a triangle with one angle bigger than 90 degrees. Might have one angle that's bigger than 90 degrees. It won't be possible for it to have 2 angles that are bigger than 90 degrees, and you'll see why here in a second. The third and final way to classify triangles by their angles is to call it an acute triangle. An acute triangle is a triangle where all 3 angles are less than 90 degrees. Not necessarily equal, just all 3 angles less than 90 degrees, much like this triangle here that I've drawn for you. 3 acute angles. Okay, so that's the 3 ways to classify triangles by their angles. There's 3 ways to classify triangles by their sides. You can classify them as equilateral if all 3 of their sides are equal, much like this triangle right here in red that I've drawn. You can classify them as equilateral if all 3 sides are equal. You can classify them as isosceles if it has 2 equal sides. If 2 out of the 3 sides are equal to each other, that would be an isosceles triangle, much like this one. These little tick marks right here, that just means that those sides are equal. The ones that have tick marks are equal. It's an isosceles triangle with 2 equal sides. You might also have a scalene triangle. That's the last way to classify a triangle by its size. It's a triangle with no equal sides, where none of them are equal, much like this lovely triangle I've drawn here in red. Okay? 6 different ways to classify triangles by their sides or by their angles. There's 2 rules about triangles that are super duper important. When you add up the interior angles, the inside angles, when you add up the inside angles, the sum of the inside angles of any triangle is always 180 degrees. The sum of the interior angles of any triangle is 180 degrees. Okay, there's lots of reasons for that. I can explain those more if you ask me in our station. Okay, but that is the rule for the sum of the interior angles of a triangle. Okay, there's a special rule about sides too. The 2 smaller sides of a triangle, when they add together, they must add to be bigger than the largest side, or you cannot create a triangle if you don't have that criteria met. The 2 smaller sides of a triangle must add to be bigger than the largest side of a triangle. And we'll talk about that in my station if you ask me. Okay, if you just trust me, you can just trust me. Okay, if you feel like asking me, you can certainly do that as well. 3 practice problems. Here you go. You got some rules. You got some vocabulary words. You got 3 practice problems. Okay. If I want to find the missing angle measure of this triangle, all I need to do is go back and look at my rule that says that the sum of the interior angles of any triangle is 180 degrees. Okay, that means that this angle plus this angle plus this angle all have to add together to be 180 degrees. If I add 50 and 55 together, I get 105 degrees. So I know that this angle must carry the weight of what would be left to get it to 180 degrees, much like those supplementary angles we talked about yesterday. Okay, if I do 180 minus 105, I get 75 degrees. The missing angle right here is 75 degrees, this question mark. I use my rules. I did some addition, did some subtraction. Number two, if you had a triangle with two angles of 35 and 65, 35 plus 65, let's just check it. It's 100 degrees if you add those together, which means that the third angle would have to add up to 100 to get to 180. 180 minus 100 is 80 degrees. The third angle must be 80 degrees. Those are two practice problems that you might see on a quiz or on a test. Okay. Another thing you might see is on that next page that you look at. When you look at number 5, I'm going to skip over to number 5. It says find the missing angle measure without using a protractor. The triangle is not drawn to scale. Set up an equation and show your work. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set up an equation much like we did yesterday. I know that this angle, 25 degrees, plus this angle, 98 degrees, plus this angle, x minus 10, I'll have to add together to get to 180 degrees. I have a couple like terms that I can combine. Combine. That's not a real word, Mr. Allred. Combine is, though. So I'm going to combine some like terms. 25 plus 98 is 123. I just copied the rest. Minus 10 plus x equals 180. I'm going to combine some more like terms. 123 minus 10 is 113 plus x equals 180. After I subtracted 113 from both sides to get rid of the constant, I found out that x was 67 degrees. Okay, then I would need to go back and actually take x and plug it back in, substitute it into this expression. I know that 67 minus 10 is the measure of this third angle, 57 degrees. Okay, the best way you can possibly check yourself is if you go back and you take 57 and 25 and 98 and add them all together and get 180. That means we did that math problem right. And we did. This is great news because that means that we don't have to do number 5 anymore. We can move on with our lives and get on with it. Okay, that's really all I'm going to do for you here today. Ed Puzzle's going to ask you a question about number 3 here in a second. But that's really all I'm going to do for you today. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming in and listening to this video, even though it's Friday and even though you're probably a little tired. Okay, remember to stay classy and don't be trashy. Of all my students I've ever taught, you are one of them. Thanks. Have a great day.